welcome to the Round Ball with Heto, Seva and Andy Bernal. Boys, Andy and Seva, welcome, lads.
Good to be back, my friend.
It is good to be back, and our show last week, we're going to get onto that later on, but we had some really good feedback. Today, we're going to be doing some stuff on the Newcastle Jets and Central Coast Mariners, and there's no better person to get on that knows the Jets and the Mariners inside out than the once Mayor of Gosford, Lawrie Mckinna. Welcome, Lawrie.
Good morning, gents. How you doing?
Very good.
Good, mate.
Very good, Lawrie. Now, Lawrie, thanks for jumping on.
No problem at all.
And we're going to get obviously stuck into some questions and all that. But, Lawrie, you know these two lads pretty well. And these two, both Andy and Seva, are pumped to have you on, mate. So thank you.
Well, Daniel had just about as good a left foot as I did when he played. So he was decent with his left peg. I saw a few good goals in. Andy, the book, I hadn't got the book yet, Andy. I'm buying, Christine's going out to get the Billy Connolly one and your one.
There you go.
But I still remember when Andy was doing the dancing with Harry Michael's
Oz Aerobics
show, the Oz Aerobics, and he was on there with his Asics gear on, a great ambassador for Asics back in the day, Andy.
Oh, look, I think, wow, that goes back a long way. I remember, I kind of, lads, my friendship with Lawrie began around that time, but I knew of Lawrie previously. He'd played in Australia and obviously in Scotland, and a wonderful player in his time, who then was an immigrant to Australia. And it was guys like Lawrie that I looked up to as well, and looked to, with little bits of information as a young footballer. And I think we miss a lot of that these days. The old pros, the old pros from Europe, from the UK, came over, and the wealth of knowledge that they bring, the experience that they bring to the football, environment here, has no price on it. I'm very grateful for that, to have known people like Lawrie and other fantastic guys that have come here from overseas. And then it went on to, as Lawrie says, as an ASIC sponsorship, and I would sit at the back of Harry Michael's world famous Oz Aerobics with Benny Elias, and then Laurie'd have me kitted up in all his latest ASICS gear, and that flowed on to when I went back to England. And my first season in England, I was still an ASICS sponsored player, and Lawrie said, come out to Silverwater, and I went out there in the Ranger ute, backed it up, and filled up the back of the ute, and off I went to England. And I was still playing in those ASICS that Lawrie gave me at Wembley 9 months later, in front of 80,000 people. And I always said to Lawrie, make sure, you give me the ones where I can, with the longer aluminium studs. And he knew what I was talking about. So it was a great relationship.
So were you working at ASICS at the time then, Lawrie, were you?
Yeah, I was at ASICS. I came up from Melbourne. I came out here in 1986. I was in Melbourne for about 2 years, and I got transferred to Apia for Heidelberg.
Yep.
In the Old National League, and I got a job with Umbro for about a year, and then I got the opportunity to go to ASICS, and I went there in 89, and I was there till 99. I was there 10 years.
Okay.
I was sales rep for 5 years, then sponsorship market manager for 5 years, and it was a great job. I loved it. When I left to go full time at Parramatta Power. When Parramatta Power started, I went as Dave Mitchell's assistant and marketing manager as well, but I cried. I remember going out there, I cried, and they actually sponsored me up until a couple of years ago. And then I felt guilty about taking an odd pair of shoes off them, because I'm the oldest, fattest athlete they've ever sponsored, I think. So I gave it away, but I've still got my ASICS shoes on. So just proving it, only buy ASICS. I
still off it.
So I had 10 years there, and I sponsored a lot of the A-League players, or the National League players at the time. A lot of the Olympic boys, Burts, when you were there, Dave Barrett, all these guys. And so there are a lot of stories going back with ASICS boots over the years in the football fraternity. So no, it was great. And Andy, obviously, a great ambassador. And I'm sure we gave you some fluoro gear and fluoro tights to go.
Oh, mate, I was like the guinea pig. I was Laurie's guinea pig, and he probably thought that I can't give this to anybody else. But I'll give it to this lunatic.
Well, Spinky wouldn't wear it. It was too big for Spinky. It was too big for Spinky, so I had to give it to you.
I'd turn up with with lime green and fluoro yellow, ballet tights to Sydney Olympic training, across the road from Long Bay Jail. And I'd be the only lunatic that'd wear it and get away with it. So, but Lawrie, a fantastic man, fantastic operator. And we've had a long friendship that's gone into the agent world, and just really professional guy, accessible, friendly, respectful. Not enough words for you, Lawrie, and really you're an iconic figure in Australian football. I don't say that lightly. It's the things you've done while you're here at many levels as a player, as a footballer, then as a CEO of clubs, director of football of football clubs, and then what you've given is a lot. So thank you, mate.
Now, Seva, take us back to your dealings with Lawrie, and you can't speak highly enough of the man himself as well.
Yeah, I remember Lawrie at the ASIC days. I remember that ASIC sponsored Parramatta Power Marconi at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
And I remember, I don't think Lawrie knew me back then, but I came in with Vlado Zoric, Harry Carl, maybe Chad Gibson, and he just said, "Boys, go downstairs and raid the cage."
Because that was the sample. I think that was the sample cage, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
yeah.
Yeah. I think I was 16, 17 at the time. I was with Eddie Krencevic at the time. He was the coach. And I just thought this was the best. Like, you don't care about, you just want free boots as a youngster.
Yeah,
that's I remember the ASIC's testimonials.
The best
boots. Yeah,
white flip over tongue.
Yeah, the white flip over tongue, and
kangaroo leather. It was different class.
Very, very good boot. They were very good boot. I remember taking them overseas, and people were like, "What are they?" I'm like, "They were a very good boot." And basically, I've played with players that have gone through the Mariners setup when Lawrie was there, and they can't speak highly enough of him. Like Dylan McAllister, I ended up playing with him up at the Gold Coast, and we just had great words to say about Lawrie because he's the coach you want to play for. He's the man you'd run through a brick wall through. Like he's there's, like Birch said, there's not enough words to describe Lawrie and the lack of Lawries in Australian football right now. To be honest.
Yeah. I think it's just people to be straight with people, straight with players, and get respect. You don't need to model cuddle them. If somebody needs a kick up the arse, you give them it. If they need a cuddle, you give them it. And it's knowing your players as well and knowing what you need to do to get the best.
Now, Lawrie, that's what I was going to ask you. So everyone, obviously, as you're a player then a coach, did you base your sort of managerial or coaching experiences off anyone, or did you just, this is how I want to be treated, I'm going to coach like this?
No, that's a great question because I don't think I've actually been ever asked that. So I never really thought about coaching until I was about 32. I broke my leg, my tibia and fibia at Blacktown when I was 31, 32. And I was out for 2 years. And at that time, Kelly Cross, who's at Sydney FC, Kelly was reserve team coach, and they'd actually knocked somebody out on the sideline. Somebody jumped the fence at Marrickville Oval to have a go at Ken Shembry, who was the Blacktown coach at the time. Kelly binned him one, and he got suspended. So I taken over the youth team because I wasn't playing. And that was my first, and I was going through my badges. And then I left Blacktown when I was about 35, 36 and went to Hills United as player coach, which is the Brumbies now.
Yep.
And that's when Dave Mitchell came back from overseas to Olympic. And Mitch was back one game, and they sacked the coach, who was Ratcliffe. Ratcliffe got sacked, and they gave Mitch the gig. And going back to Essex, Dave Barrett came in for new boots. And I said, "Oh, how's Mitch doing? He's got the job. Who's his assistant?" And he says, "He's not got one. He's looking." So I made a call to Mitch and gave him a couple of names, Tom Sermani and Ron Smith, who knew me and knew him. I never knew Mitch. I played against him when I was at Kilmarnock reserve game because I remember. But when Mitch, I went to Olympic, I got the gig, was at Olympic for the back end of the season, and we did very well. We just missed out in the finals, and then me and Mitch went to Sydney United for 2 years. We won the league and got beat in the grand final, and then we went to Parramatta Power. So I was with Mitch for 5 years, and I got a lot of this stuff off Mitch. Okay. Mitch came back for Europe with a huge knowledge of stuff, and I don't think Mitch has ever been given the credit he deserves as a player and as a coach.
Yep.
And as a person as well.
Spot on.
Mitch learned me that you can have fun, because you used to turn up, you're part-time, pissing down the rain, your last 10 minutes of training session shit because it's pissing down. You go home to your missus, how was training? And your training session for an hour and 15 minutes could have been spot on. But that last 15 minutes when the coach is just trying to drag something out of you that's not there, just bin it, send them in.
Okay.
You know, Mitch he learnt me so much about players enjoying themselves, working hard, that work ethic, working for each other and having fun. And we had the best laughs. Yeah, and when you need to, there's a line. When you cross that line, you get your ass kicked. But I learned so much of Dave Mitchell. And when I got the opportunity to go to Spirit as head coach, you know, went there and I won Coach of the Year the first year. We made the finals for the first year. And I think it was like 8 years since Spirit had been in the finals. And I had 2 really good seasons there before the Mariners started. But I give a lot of the credit to Dave Mitchell because and I've taken a lot of that work ethic into work. Yeah. Because if you're happy, if you've got a happy environment in your office, you work harder and you work better because you're enjoying being there and being with the people that you're working with every day, rather than being some big time Charlie who, you know, you sit in your big fancy office and you know these guys are working for you. Well, I don't work like that. You're working with them. People used to say when I was a mayor, well, what's it like meeting the Prime Minister? I go, it's all right, but they shit and piss the same as me. What's the difference? You know, and I say that to everybody, and it's true because people are normal when you never know who you're speaking to. Yeah. You know, you could be speaking to somebody who is a Prime Minister of a country. You just treat people with respect. You don't need to agree. You can agree to disagree. And I learned that when I was a mayor as well, because so many people would just nip your head and we're not going to agree on this. So you agree to move on, I respect your opinion, but I don't agree with it and move on. So Dave Mitchell had 5 great years with Big Mitch. And what a player, by the way, as well. What a player.
Yeah, he was the player.
Yeah, go Birch.
Look, I think great words, Lawrie, and Mitch is someone that how he's not, you know, in the game here in some capacity is embarrassing and disgraceful, to say the least. You know, it's why at times this game struggles here in this country. But back to Lawrie, you know, the greatest thing, you know, that I found with Lawrie is, you know, the access. You could pick up the phone and call Lawrie, and he'd pick the phone up. He'd pick the phone up, or if it was busy, he'd call you back within a minute or two. There's a couple. And
this is you, Birch. Sorry, this is you talking from an agent point of view now.
This is talking from an agent, from a friend's point of view is a different topic, but from an agent point of view, call Lawrie, and it was always, as he just said, with the football, it's all very simple. Do the simple things really well, and the first one of them is respect. You know, and whether it's Andy or someone else, Lawrie always picked up the phone, always returned the call. Yeah. You know, that's a very empowering thing for a club. It's a very professional kind of, you know, mindset, and that's why he was very successful. But dealing with Lawrie as well on an agent, you know, level is so easy. It's, you call him, he doesn't come out with send me video shit and all this sort of stuff. You know, he's a football man, and he respects and looks at where people have played, what they've done in their career. And if I say to Lawrie, I've got a 14-year-old kid that you need to look at, put him on a bus. How can we get him up here? There's everything is positive. From the time he picks up that phone, it's positive. When can we get him up here, Birch? That's how easy it is, you know. And I took Tom Rogic to Lawrie, Stephen Ugarkovic to Lawrie, a young boy called Lucas Moragas from Marimbula to Lawrie. You know, gave him his debut with the Jets last year. He's now an Olyroos under 23, and I think he'll become a Socceroo. Very good player, you know, and such a smooth process. Lawrie, you got to have a look at these kids. Yep. And you know, that's the history now in the A-League. I got, you know, coaches, you know, in the under 16s, 14s, 13s, 12s of any of these clubs, you know, send me this, send me that. Mate, the kid's playing for Tuggeranong in Canberra under 12s on Dogpoo Park. It's not Fox Sports Australia. It's not Optus. I ain't got a video. I don't carry a video camera around with me. Just, it's Birch calling you. Have a look at the kid. It's not rocket science, is it, Lawrie?
No, some simple game made hard, and people trying to be what they're not. You know, is when Andy ever phoned me with anybody, and obviously I work closely with Joe Griffiths. Said, Joe, if Andy sends us anybody, they're going to be decent. They might not fit in, or they might not be quite good enough. Exactly. They're going to be decent. Have a look at them. And okay, we never had money. Or I think I came down to Canberra a couple of times even to look at some of the boys. And,
yes, very, very unheard of in our game. That the CEOs will travel.
Yeah, and if it's somebody's phoning you up who you respect, you take a call. But even I got a missed call for you overseas. You just never know. That's why I'll always get back to people, because you just never know what they're calling about or who they're calling about. And you could just get that gem. And that was like, I was unfortunate enough not to coach Rogic, but I signed him before the end of the season when Army come in. And I moved upstairs, and unfortunately, he did really well, went to Celtic, and he's still there because I'm a big Rangers fan. So but I do remember coming out of Ibrox. I was back there on holiday coming out, and I went, this will be back about 4 years. I was in the director's box, went in and got the nice sausage rolls and pies at Ibrox. Rangers won the game, which was the first one for a long time, and Tom played really well. And I was walking out the stairway, and the team manager came out. I said, "Oh, is Rogic out yet?" He said, "No, he's still in there." I said, "Can you tell him Big Laurie's out here?" 5 minutes later, the big man came out with a fucking bigger Scottish accent than me. Big man. So it was just great to see him, because he's just such a down-to-earth boy who's done tremendously well. And it's great that he's back in Angie's plans now, and a big part of Celtic moving forward.
Now, Lawrie, take us there. Seva, before I get you to throw some questions at, take us to that Mariners team that obviously you coached and then went upstairs. It was a pretty good Mariners team at the time, produced a lot of Socceroos. You must be pretty proud of that time you spent at the Mariners.
I was there for the 5 years, and I brought a lot of those boys from Northern Spirit. And I was doing in my morning swim down at Terrigal Beach here. Andrew McDermott, that played at Northern Spirit, and Bucks Hugh, he would have kicked.
Yes,
those two would have kicked each other and just got on with it, because that's how Macca was. And I think he was 2PR as well, Macca, and he's at West Brom.
Yeah.
The Institute, another boy at the Institute. So he was down at Terrigal this morning. Hutch, Wilco, but Wilco went on and played with the Socceroos. But I think at one stage, between Northern Spirit and the Mariners, I think there were like 7 boys at each of the last 2 or 3 World Cups who had came through the Mariners. And I was proud, I'd gave them their first contract. Matt Milligan came through the Northern Spirit. Nobody would touch Milligan because he was injured coming out of the Institute. And I called my youth team coach to give him a gig at Northern Spirit. He had no contracts left, so I gave him a first team contract. He played against Olympic Birch at Cogra Oval. Olympic beat us 1-0, and he gave away the penalty. That was his first National League game when he was an 18-year-old kid.
Wow.
But, there were some great boys who weren't known because we had no money.
Yeah.
We had 19 training venues in 5 years, every public park we trained on. But that character, you got Jednak was driving up for 3 or 4 months, trying to get a contract. And we had the chance to play up in Toowoomba in the pre-season cup. He got sick and couldn't even play. So for him to keep coming, and then he got an injury replacement. Matt Simon done a similar thing, packed in his apprenticeship to get a gig. He was playing with the local state league club. But nowadays, I feel a lot of the head coaches, I don't know if it's lazy or if it's arrogance, they don't go to state league games. They don't want to go round about the grounds. Every weekend, I would go there, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's where I saw Matt Simon score goals for East Gosford Rams on the local Central Coast. He came to training, you give him a wee chance, and he's been the club's top all-time goal scorer. You have to get off your arse and go and see these boys playing in the Premier League.
Lawrie, it's a great point, because Seva, you and I have said that for so long, that some of these sort of NPL players, if they got a chance in an A-League setup, like Laurie's just talking about, they'd succeed, right?
Yeah, well, but Birch, sorry, Lawrie, but Birch, we were talking earlier this morning on the phone, and what did I say to you? I said, Laurie's the only one of very, very, I could probably put Branko Chelina in there.
Yeah.
But Lawrie was the only one I used to see at the NPL games.
And for me, it's not a secret either, Seva, because Lawrie and Branko Chelina come from cultures and countries where rough diamonds and diamonds are found. and Sunday league football. It's kind of part of the culture, the environment, the process. And just because Lawrie was at the Mariners or at the Jets or wherever, it wasn't beneath him to go and watch, players at NPL level. And if I grabbed Lawrie, David Mitchell, and Barney Smith, and you gave us 20 of the best NPL players that we can select in a full-time environment, the AIS, I reckon we'd finish in the top 3 of the A-League.
I reckon, yep.
Because the thing, I used to look at the best 18, 19-year-olds playing in Premier League. So if they're good enough playing that level and you look at them, and I'd usually sign them. I got so many of the Mariners boys through that. But Butch, with you, with young, what do you call him? The wee lefty that we just signed last year.
Lucas Moragas.
You told me his age, blah, blah, blah. He's playing well. Have a look at him. He came in, first training session, tough little guy, decent, good left peg. Hey, he's got a wee chance. Straight away, first training session.
You see it straight away.
He's got a chance. You don't need to keep somebody for 2 or 3 weeks. The reason we did that with Jednak and that, because we no spots and we no money, we had to wait for somebody going out to bring him in.
Right.
But the wee man came in and done very well. Within a month or two, I remember phoning you, Butch. He's playing tonight. Remember when he made his debut against
You phoned me. You phoned me during the match. Yeah. The boy was about to come on, and the CEO of the Jets calls me at home. I'm watching the TV. I'm watching him on TV, and he goes, "The boy's coming on now." And that's not just So that from Lawrie, he the role is bigger than just that of a CEO. He kind of. I feel, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, Lawrie, but I feel you almost become like a mentor and a father figure to a lot of these footballers, and it's the beautiful thing about what you created at the Mariners, and you took a lot of that to the Jets as well. I think it's what our country is about. The old NSL, and I'm not having an A-League and NSL fight and all that. There's nothing to do with that. It is what it is now. But it's giving young humans, young men, young women an opportunity in our game. A spirit about it of being fearless and warriors and going out and playing good football. And that's kind of what became that Central Coast Mariners side. And it's about opportunity. And you're a man that gave a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and you sit back and look now and you go, yeah, it was good, but it's that. And you're spot on what you're saying. It's giving people the opportunity. If you just keep saying no, it's easy to say no. It's lazy to say no, and that's in the workplace. What about, nah, it's too hard. It's not too hard. Yeah. Can we make this happen? Can the boys from Melbourne come up and pay their own accommodation? Yes, they can. They can get a car up. Okay, can they train with the youth team? Yep, no problem. Are they decent? Yes. Okay, let's elevate them up to train with the first team for a couple of sessions. Can they mix it? Yes, they can mix it. Now you've got a chance. That boy's got a chance of contract. That easy.
Now, Lawrie, can you take us? Sorry, we're obviously talking about Central Coast and Newcastle. Can you take us into the Newcastle Jets over the last 3 or 4 years? Obviously, a lot of media around, their owners or their lack of owners and their lack of funding, etc. It's similar to the Mariners as well. Take us inside, I guess, how hard it is to put squads together on such a low budget and still have to give the fans what they want.
The first year when we came in with Martin Lee, I brought in Martin Lee, and the squad was already signed. Scott Miller was in place. I didn't think the squad was that great. We brought in a couple of players. Scott Miller got moved on. I brought in Mark Jones. So the budget was set for that year. At the end of that season, we cleared out a lot of players. And before Ernie came in, we'd actually signed everybody bar 2 players. Ernie Merritt came in. We had a good squad. Would probably be mid-table on the spend with what the owner put in. And we made the grand final. Simple. Ugakovic was outstanding. We'd Petrados hadn't been. He went to Brisbane. We went here, went there, went to Korea. It didn't work out. He was like a superstar. Naboo had went. We signed him as well. I'd signed them. Naboo came in, and Naboo and Ugakovic and Petrados were outstanding. So we get to grand final. We got dudded by VAR. Yeah. So that's around about the May, June. In the August, I always remember going in a function at the town hall in Newcastle. I was walking about in the park outside on the phone with Martin Lee, and he said, "We're going to have to cut the budget." this is when the tariffs started getting kicked in the Chinese for the Americans. Need to cut 600 grand. I said, we can't. We've actually spent that money because you approved that month ago. So back and forward, he said, don't, because we're in the Champions League. So long story short, end of that year, he never put in. So he never put any money in for the last 2 years. So basically trying to keep the club, the last 2 years was basically keeping the club doors open.
Yeah.
And it was, we're basically spending the salary cap, brought in Carl Robertson, came in and we had a great run. If that back end, this when it got stopped for COVID, we the one that if that had been the first 10 games, we'd have been sitting top of the league.
Yeah.
With the results, playing good football, good players. The half season before that, were lumbering around about the bottom of the league, changed the coach, and what a difference it made to these players. So that's, in my opinion, and Burt's touched on it, is getting the best out of your players with what you've got.
Yeah.
Don't whinge, I don't have any money. You take the job. That's what you've got. But we had the lack of staff, and it was basically hard. I was doing a juggling that, just keeping the doors open. You know, it was robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
And last year with Deansy, we couldn't even sign players until December because we couldn't get W League players signed because we never had any income for the boss for more than a year. Then we could sign them. So we still had a competitive team. Wow. But it was for all the wrong reasons. You know, it was hard. The last 2 years, it wasn't a real football. It was every day was a grind, and it was hard on you. And the players, credit to players and the staff up there for hanging in and performing and getting results was outstanding. Like guys like your Roy O'Donovans, your senior players, Jason Hoffman, Bogart, keeping the group as a positive group was testament to those boys with a great dressing room. And again, it comes back to that cultural thing, hard work and respect. Our boys had it, and I know the new owners come in and say they're going to be community minded. As community minded, my arse, we were community minded. That's why we were still getting, even during COVID, we were getting 3,000 and 4,000 people turning up. When Sydney were getting 2,000 people turning up. You know, so you actually weigh things up together. You know, we did a lot in that community show. You could feel and touch the club. We were in distance of feeling and touching people, and people respect that.
100%. And Seva, that's similar to like the situation the Mariners were at last year and what Stadge did with the Mariners, got the boys up and about and where they finished.
Yeah, it's not an easy juggling act, as Lawrie said. You know, if you're not in the know and you don't understand what CEOs and coaches have to go through, especially in a budgeted league, you might just see a team that's saying, "Oh, last year they were in the final. Why this year they run an eighth?" It just doesn't happen overnight. There's always behind the scenes stuff, and good players don't become bad players overnight. Yep. Same as CEOs. It's a restricted league, no matter how you look at it. Budgets and, you know, especially with COVID and that. But yeah, I just think it takes a special person to be a somewhat like Lawrie is. Like, you got to be a chameleon. You got to pretty much rob from Peter to pay Paul. Like, you know, it's a special juggling act that not many people can do.
I thought you called me a comedian there. I've been called that.
No, but it's you know, Lawrie.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's not easy to do. It's so
you go in there, you're not dealing with you're dealing with everything, and you have to, as a coach, you have to vision like that, because I do really well watching, and you can feel and you can smell the dressing room. You know, it's the same in the office. You know when you have to pick somebody up, because you can feel it and you can taste it. Basically, if you're in that football game, you bring in a corporate person. Yeah. And I'm not saying corporates can't be good CEOs, because they can, because they're good businessmen. But when it comes to that football, that smell and the touch, because Rally always goes on about you can smell it. And you know, and you can. Football guys, you can feel, same as in a game when that momentum changes, you can feel it. We're going to get a goal here, because you can feel that roll gets on. Or you're under a pump, you know you're going to have to hang on, because you can just feel what's happening out there.
Well, for example, Lawrie, I don't know how you saw it. Like, it's all a mental thing. For example, if you go 1-0 down in a match, first 5 minutes, and you got to pick up the ball, you got to take the kickoff. I used to think, if I went 1-0 down, I used to think, well, we had to score one anyway. You know what I mean? So
I used to think And it's the prime game for it was when Newcastle beat the Mariners in semi-final 2-0 for the first game.
Yeah.
Replay, the second leg was down at Central Coast, 2 full. They had 22,000, we had about 19 sellouts. And I said, boys, we just have to score the first goal. Doesn't matter when we score the first goal. You get one, it's 2-1. They'll be shitting themselves and they'll come. Kwasnick scored a great goal in the first half. Sash Petrovsky banged in the equaliser. Then we pumped them, and in the extra time, we pumped them. We won the game. And you're down 2-0. But we only need to get one goal because the momentum, even at 3-1, at 3-0, we done it twice. And we came back to 3-3 against Adelaide and Sydney FC.
That's right.
Yeah. That momentum, once you get that one goal, even down 3, you're fearless.
Yeah.
And teams have to defend well. But at 2-0, a lot of people say 2-0 is a dangerous score because as soon as you lose that last 10 minutes, you're under the pump.
Yeah, you are.
But for me, the greatest thing about teams that Lawrie has been involved with is at whatever level, everyone puts in the work. And you can't control the circumstances of Australian football at times, the money issues, etc. But what I found with Lawrie teams all the time, whoever is on the bench, the coaches, the coaching staff, the scouts, the directors of football, whatever, they do their job. We get a lot of, you get it through a lot of A-League clubs now. Coaches that you chat to and they'll tell you a 16-year-old kid, well, he's not this and he can't do that. Well, fix it. Aren't you the coach?
Yeah.
Fix it. Oh, the kid can't head a ball. Well, teach him to head a ball. What are you getting paid for?
Yeah.
You're at, say, whatever club. I'm not going to name them. You can be whatever A-League club, yeah? Oh, yeah, coach, he's not great with his left foot. He can't tackle. He gets caught out here. Well, isn't that your job?
Yeah.
To fix that kid, to educate that kid, to give him a message. It's there's too many people in our football system in the development areas, that are nicking a living. I'm telling you, they're nicking a living. And if you go through every A-League club, there's people within those clubs nicking a living. And the kids are not getting the right messages. And the coaches, you're paid for more than just putting out the cones and following a curriculum, and giving these kids generic crap messages.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay? Get out
100%.
and coach and tell them the real deal, what it's
100%.
like out on the pitch at the highest levels. And then
Now,
we'll start
Lawrie,
producing.
sorry, Birch. Now, Lawrie, before we let you go, how do you think both Newcastle and Central Coast are going to fare this year? Both sides have got some, I know Newcastle have signed some good players. Obviously, Sammy Silvera as well, young guy that was at the Mariners, come back to Newcastle. And Central Coast have a pretty strong squad. And I think Ollie Bozanic's just one of the best players in the league at the moment for the Mariners. And I just think if Ollie Bozanic's playing, Mariners are going to have every chance as well.
Last season, Bozanic was outstanding because I live on the coast. I went to a lot of the games and he was outstanding. And the big, his other partner, the Blondie, the big Kiwi, that just went overseas, the big holding midfielder, what's his name? Stensis.
Yeah.
I thought the two of them done a fantastic job in there. And obviously Matt Simon, probably his best season in his career.
Yep.
So, but Bozanic was the main thing for me. When they missed him in the semi-finals,
100%.
They were never going to win without him. They needed him. I think with Monty in there, I speak to Monty every couple of weeks. Boys are loving training because I see Ollie down at the beat in Birighetti. Boys are loving training, the intensity, what Monty would bring, because he's like our mentality. He's came through the English Premier League and the Championship.
Yeah.
And they bring in a lot of young boys. So my only worry for them is, have they got enough experienced players in there? That's just a thing for me looking at it, because obviously they're limited to budget. He's made some good signings. Birighetti's obviously a big player, a goalkeeper. He's been outstanding in the last couple of years. So I think Monty will have them fighting for each other. I know for a fact they're training this morning, and then the boys are going to one of the breweries for lunch and a few beers.
Are they?
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
The coaches, because they're not enough of that. It's all, what's your loads? What's this? Let's play some small-sided games. Oh, you can't because it's too much in your loads. F the loads. You know, outside the games is where everything's sorted. If you've got a problem in the dressing room, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, get on the beers.
Anything at the end of training, you know, I know you can't do it now, but I was always Catholics and Protestants because I'm a Rangers man. And the Catholics never won in my coaching career. I can assure you.
Why can't we do it?
Why? Oh, because it's too much intensity, you know. But Monty's got, the boys were out for lunch the other day. They're getting that culture right in the dressing room. The Jets, and I've been speaking to Roy Donovan because obviously he's not got a club, but they've made it's a completely new team. I think they've only 4 or 5 existing players. You know,
yeah, they do. There's a full clean out.
And they've made a few good signings. And if they can get it together, and I hear that he's working them really hard.
Yeah,
Pappas is working them really hard, and the boys are responding to it. So he's made some big signings and a lot of signings. So I would be looking on paper. They should be very competitive. I think they've had a real. No, there was a clean out, but they've brought in a lot of the new owners, the 4 new owners who are the owners of the 4 A-League clubs. They have gave them money to spend, which is good. So they've invested in it. So they're not going off a salary cap, I can assure you that. I've been going now for 4 months. They're way above that. Wow. So they've invested. So for the punters who say, the 4 owners are not going to invest, they are investing at the moment. So the Newcastle punters, and up there, they don't actually understand what's going on. They just see it as 4 owners. But these guys need to get the club competitive because they have to sell it, because they've came in to pay the bills.
Yep.
They never paid the existing bills, but they've done the running costs. So they need to get it successful so they can actually sell it to get their money back.
In the meantime, Lawrie, if there was a finals place at stake and Newcastle were playing one of their owners, can you tell me a scenario there that isn't a conflict of interest?
No, my understanding, Butts, to that is it wasn't the clubs that invested in the Jets; it's the owners individually. So that's a bit of
okay. That's, you know what, fine.
And they've got. But you're right, because there were a bit of noise when Big Donaghy went to Sydney FC.
Yeah.
And the reason the Jets got rid of him is because he was signed on a pre-COVID contract. That's why we loaned them to India. So you look at what he was going to get. They've brought in Elsie, who would probably be 50 to 100 grand less.
Yeah. And
do the same job. So that's why he went. But straight away, the punters went, why is he went to Sydney FC? Why is Gakovic went to
Western
Wanderers? Why Bernie Beanie, blah, blah. So all that. So
it's the owners. It's basically the owners separate to the club business.
Yes. It's individual.
They've invested in.
Yes.
Well, you know what? Fantastic.
Birch, there's your answer, because you and I and Seva, Birch, that's perfect answer, which is what no one's come out and said.
Yeah, that's it. It was simple. So that's where, some people will still see it. But to be fair, I was there for a few months when they were all there. I was on a few of the board. Never once. I know Joel Griffiths, when he was telling them the targets, he didn't want to tell them. Joel's like, I can't tell them because then they'll go for them, blah, blah, blah. Like the boy for Wellington who was going to sign now, he's playing at Hearts, like he was man of the match, first 2 or 3 games he played at Hearts, in middle of midfield. What's his name? The wee Sydney boy that was playing with Wellington middle of midfield. We signed him, but they had a pre-thing with Hearts. He's over on Hearts and he's killing it in the middle of midfield for Hearts, and they play Rangers tonight or tomorrow. So it'll be a big. They're up sitting near the top of the league. So it's top of the league. So no, so that's how it is. They don't have any interference. They're the ones who have put the money in to get the players at the moment, and staff. It's not just players. They've got some amount of staff up there. Look, we were on the smell of an oily rag. They've got coaches and that coming out their arse, so they've invested into that team.
Brilliant.
It's a perfect answer, boys. That's all we've been asking for. Yeah.
Easy explain.
Now, boys, it's been wonderful to have Lawrie on. So, Lawrie, thank you for coming on. And that last couple of minutes has answered a lot of questions for us as a podcast, and I think a lot of our listeners as well. So, boys, I'll leave it to you. Boys, Lawrie, thank you for coming on. And Birch and Seva, I know you're happy
Thanks,
to have
Lawrie.
him on.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you, Lawrie.
All the best.
Thanks, Lawrie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, boys, how good?
Oh, he's a football man, isn't he? He's
Hey,
he's from football stock.
We need 10 of him, man. How
We
much better will the league be with fucking more Lawries? But listen, like it'll be better for everyone. Players, coaches, agents.
I said it before. You know, he's a football man. He's from football stock. I'm telling you, you know, for the Australian Premier League, if they gave myself, Lawrie, David Mitchell, Barney Smith,
Yeah.
you know, head coach at Adelaide, comments, you know, an opportunity to build a Canberra side for the new Australian Premier League.
Fuck.
I'm not talking about winning the league, you know, time and time again. I'm going for Asian Cups, Asian Championships. There's nothing less, you know, in my mind.
But boys, as a fan, right? I come from a different perspective than you gents. You know, I come as a fan. That last 2 minutes just quashed every single rumor in the game at the moment. For 2 minutes, he squashed every single rumor about ownership. Yeah,
perfect.
And it wasn't even it was just a quick sentence.
And he wasn't lying. You could read his body language.
Yeah,
Laurie's not like that. He's not inclined like that.
Lawrie,
now, boys, it was a great show, and I know you guys are stoked to have him on. So, Lawrie, again, thanks. Now, boys, I quickly want to touch on last week's episode. Personally, I've had a lot of feedback that it was a great show, and our people are listening to our opinions. And I'll throw to you two in a sec. What I want to get out is we're not Matilda bashing here. We're actual supporters of Matildas. There's now an investigation going to happen, so we'll just let that happen. And if we need to do another podcast on it in a few weeks' time or a few months' time, we will. Now, Seva, you've had contact with a lot of people that you haven't even spoken to in a long time. Get in contact with you.
Yeah, people that I used to go to school with, which they now have young families, daughters, and whatever. And I'm like, wow, like this is we've definitely made some waves. They just said, look, well done, keep it going. We love what you guys are doing. It's informational, and it's positive. It's not negative.
Yep.
It's positive because we all have. Well, my agenda is I have two young girls, which I would like them involved in football. I really would. Like, as much as I say I don't, I'd probably say, yeah, I would like them. So, yeah, the feedback has been enormous, and it gives us the reason why we jump on here and give our time away.
Yeah,
and because we are in the know to produce little shows like this.
And Birch, you and I have been on the phone a bit the last couple of days, and the people that have got in contact with you are a similar.
Well, look, I've had from fans, from football fans of the Socceroos of Matildas that have been in touch. Everyone's been really embracing and you know, fantastic about, you know, whatever we said.
Yeah.
The greatest kudos for me is, you know, people from the football hierarchy of this nation and, you know, broadcasting of the highest level, current and previous, that have said, well done, boys, you know. And again, and I'm not going to say it again, we want the Matildas to be one of the greatest beacons of light in this country and for this nation. We are Matildas fans. I want everybody, when Brazil comes out here, to go to the stadium and watch the Matildas and get behind the girls. And we've called for investigations because there have been accusations and allegations, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It'll happen. It has to happen within the Matildas, and it happens with other brands and organisations. So it's nothing different. But the Matildas represent our nation. Things happen in all organisations. We have now called for inquiries, investigations. That'll happen. That'll take care of itself. But in the meantime, we go and support the girls.
Get out there, everyone. They're out here coming up. There's tickets on sale. I'm not sure if there's actually any left. I think they've actually gone and exhausted all the tickets. So people still want to get out and see the Matildas. Now, boys, thank you. Go and enjoy proper lockdown-esque weekend, because I know I am. Birch, you're just about out, I'm told, in Canberra too. You're nearly there.
Oh, where I'm about to take Janie off to run the sports bar, and it's a Hard Rock Cafe day, brother.
Boys, thank you.
Thank you.
See you, boys.